Hello fellow brawlers, I'm Simon. It is time to talk about the question that everybody is wondering right now. Is Brawl Stars ready for global, and is it ready for Android? Hope you enjoy the video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Simon. It is time to brawl. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications so you don't miss out on any more quality Brawl Stars content. I'm not going to waste any of your time. Let's go ahead and get right to it, straight to my opinion, and then we'll kind of expand from there. Is Brawl Stars ready for Android, and is it ready for global? To be completely honest, it's not quite ready yet. Okay, now I know that that is not what you wanted to hear, but I will say that the game feels really close. With some minor tweaks, I think the game really is close and ready for Android and global. We're going to talk about why I think it's close. We're going to talk about what I think needs to be improved before that can actually happen. And then at the end of the video, we'll make sure and cover how long I think it's going to take for us to get to that point. First off, why do I think that Brawl Stars is really close to getting ready for global? First of all, the landscape update was huge, okay? It changed a lot of things, and with it came a couple of issues that we'll talk a little bit later on, but at the same time, it did fix a ton of issues with the game. First of all, landscape gameplay makes so much more sense. First of all, you had no ability to be able to see who was to the left and who was to the right of you or anything like that, and now you can see a much wider section, and that has greatly improved the strategy that you can have. Basically, you had to play on voice in order for you to avoid getting ganked, because there was no mini-map, there was no pings, there was no way to know what was happening, and that is all fixed now because we've made the game landscape. Now you can see to the left of you can see to the right of you, you can better understand what's happening on the actual battlefield, if you need to fall back, if you need to go give your teammate some support. Honestly, gameplay really just feels like it just makes so much more sense, and aside from the controls and auto aim, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, gameplay is much better and easier to understand. So that's the first reason why I think we're close to global. The second reason is the fact that the game is a lot friendlier to new players. Previously, new players would really get hit hard when they first joined the game because they'd jump in, they'd climb a few trophies, and then they'd start getting matched up against players that just unlocked these rare brawlers like Spike and Crow, and these new players were more experienced and they just smashed the new players because they could juke all your shots, they could aim and hit all of their shots, and they were just better all overall. One quick note, I think once the game goes global, matchmaking will be much better, and I don't think this will be as much of an issue. Now, with auto aim in the game, these new players are able to get in there, and they're actually going to have a much easier time playing against these more experienced players, which makes early progression far less punishing to these new players. Now guys, I know what you're going to say about auto aim, and I have my own gripes about auto aim, which I will get to later in this video, but you cannot deny the fact that the game is now easier for new players to get into. Like, you can't deny it. They're like, it's easier for new players to play the game. Hopefully, this results in these new players sticking around longer until the point where they can actually get devoted and kind of get bought into the game. The third reason why I think that we're a lot closer to global is because progression is way less confusing. Seriously, the old progression system was just way too confusing. Do you remember my best way to max your account video? Yeah, that one that was 24 minutes long just to explain the best way to max out your account. And then even after that 24 minutes, I still got tons of questions from people who I clearly just made more confused. Yeah, that's too confusing. That's not a good progression system. Pins, badges, crests, and everything else just added confusion to new players, and that really is hard for people that are kind of like casual gamers. And Supercell is trying to target an audience that is for all gamers, not just the hardcore gamers like you and me. The new upgrade system is super simple, and not only that, it's almost identical to Clash Royale's upgrade system, which is a good thing because most of the people that are on Android waiting to play Brawl Stars are already really big fans of Clash Royale. It's simpler, it makes a ton of sense, it doesn't take 24 minutes to explain. Seriously, here it is. Here's how you do it, okay? You open up all your chests, you don't spend gold on the shop, and you just save it for upgrades, and that's it. That's the fastest way to max out your account. I don't even think that took 24 seconds. Fourth reason why I think we're closer to global than we ever have been before. Overall, the cost to max your account has slightly increased. Okay, now hold up. Don't stop the video. I know what I just said sounds like a bad thing, but I don't want you to misunderstand me, okay? Supercell recently said it's slightly more expensive if you want to instantly max everything, but free players' progress isn't much slower at all. Basically what they did is they increased the total number of boxes it takes for you to max out your account, but they also increase the amount of gold that you're able to earn every day by playing the game. This makes it more expensive to max everything with money, but equally time consuming to max everything without money. This is a good thing because Brawl Stars currently to max out your account is way less expensive than any other game that Supercell has put out on the market. By increasing the costs to max your account while keeping free-to-play progression balanced, this is a really great way to ensure more financial success for the game. And remember guys, any game company needs money to release a game. Supercell is no exception. This is a good thing. Finally, number 5. This game is polished. Okay, holy cow. Everything looks so nice. The theme is super slick. There are quite a few more maps. There are more brawlers. There's even more game modes than there was when the game first came out. The shop is actually worth looking at every day and actually dropping money into. And with the exception of a few things, the game really feels close to global. I wish half the games that I downloaded onto my phone for free were nearly as good as Brawl Stars looks. Like it looks fantastic, guys. And the quality is just outstanding. So now let's talk about what I think needs to be improved before we can go global, okay? First thing I'm going to talk about is auto aim, okay? So auto aim has significantly reduced the skill cap in the game, and this has arguably made the game a little bit less diverse and a little bit more boring, particularly for those at the competitive level of Brawl Stars. Earlier I mentioned how auto aim in the game is a good thing for new players, and that is an undeniable fact. It is absolutely better for them because it is easier for them to be able to get in and play against these more experienced players, and makes the game feel a little bit less punishing just for being a new player. But having it in the game does remove almost an entire half of how you actually interact with the game. The actual aiming and the actual shooting part. It's just one button, you just poke it, and that's the other half. It makes the game less exciting for more experienced players like myself, and has led to the game becoming a lot more stale once a player actually does progress further into the game. Personally, I find it pretty frustrating when I'm trying to actually make some skilled moves and trying to aim and be all crafty and things like that, and the other player's just smashing one button, and they're wrecking me because the shots are just almost impossible to dodge. Even when I am the one smashing that button the whole time and I win, I find the game a lot more one-dimensional and far less rewarding than before, when skilled shots actually mattered and artfully dodging was actually a thing. Overall, I actually really like the auto aim is helping new players. I think that's a good thing, but I don't like that it's doing it at the expense of the more experienced players who are actually invested in the game. Now, you need new players to get to that investment phase, and so that's why I think auto aim is a good thing. But once they actually get to that investment phase in the game, I think there needs to be something more to try and help keep them incentivized to continue playing. Now, Supercell has already said that they're testing ways to nerf auto aim, and as long as they do this in a way that auto aim is useful for new players, but also that skilled aiming and dodging is more useful than auto aiming at the competitive level, like esports and high level ladder gameplay, then I'm actually really excited for this change, and I can't wait to see what they come up with. Now, the second thing that I think needs to take a look at before the game is ready for global is that controls currently have a very high learning curve. The old controls were really simple. You joystick to move and you tap to where you want to shoot. Joystick to shoot is the new way to shoot, and it's a little awkward, and it does take some time to get used to it. After a couple of weeks, I've actually gotten pretty good at doing so, but it does take a lot of time to get to the point where it actually feels comfortable, as opposed to tap to shoot that really felt comfortable almost immediately. With the new controls, making highly precise shots quickly takes hours and hours of practice using these new controls. For tap to shoot, highly precise shots still did take some practice, but not nearly as long as it takes for joystick to shoot. Honestly, as the game is right now, if you're wanting to make a highly precise shot, you're better off just using auto aim or just saving your ammo for later. In addition to that, the new controls actually have some fundamental issues with them that makes it so that you have less control over your brawlers regardless of practice. One example of this is the fact that it is actually impossible for you to use your super at max distance below you as Piper, El Primo, Crow, Dynamite, Barley, Terra, and Bo. That's 7 brawlers. So 37% of the brawlers' supers can't function 100% the way you want them to because of the controls. In addition to that, it is impossible for you to directly throw directly at your feet as Barley or Dynamite. That's really not good, and Supercell has already said that they're working to optimize the controls, and so I'm excited to see what they have happen, but that needs to happen before the game can go global. To be 100% honest, I would just love more options so that we can choose how we want to play and interact with the game. An option to choose between a super joystick button or an activate button for your super. I would also really prefer an option to choose how big the buttons and joysticks are on our actual device so that players can optimize the controls based off of not only their device, but also based off of their own personal preference. I mean, personally, I like big buttons, cannot lie. Okay, that was a lame joke. But some people like big buttons and some people like small buttons. Not only that, but that would actually take a huge load off of Supercell trying to optimize the buttons for every single device that's out there. For Apple devices, there's basically two types of screen sizes, right? You got iPads, you got iPhones, and they're like, that's all you really have to worry about. But there are hundreds of different kinds of screen sizes and whatnot and whatever and aspect ratios for all the Android devices out there. And that's a lot to worry about for Supercell. I think it'd be a lot easier to just let the players optimize their controls by themselves. Another option I think that players would really appreciate is an option to choose between joystick to shoot, tap to shoot, and tap to move. I know that tap to shoot is not ideal in landscape. I get it, but I will gladly play that over joystick to shoot simply because tap to shoot has a much lower learning curve and it's way more intuitive and it's a lot more precise than joystick to shoot. In addition to that, I think being able to adjust joystick sensitivity, particularly for those that are playing joystick to shoot, as well as an option to choose between moving joysticks and sticky joysticks as well. There's a lot of things that I mentioned right there, but basically I think that once controls are optimized, a little bit more intuitive, easier to learn, more precise, then I think that Brawl Stars will be one huge step closer to global. The third thing that I think needs to happen before the game is ready for global is that currently new player progression is actually a lot lower than desired. According to Supercell, the reason for the landscape update was mostly to improve player retention. Supercell let us know that in order for us to be really confident in Brawl Stars' success for many years, we need to be sure that more players will overcome that hurdle. That hurdle referring to getting to the point where you're actually dedicated to the game. Because beforehand, it was like a really low percentage of people that actually picked up the game would actually get into the game and play for a decent amount of time. And Supercell is not going to release a game where very few players actually get into the game. They're about making a game that everybody loves, not just the hardcore MOBA fans. Auto aim is definitely helping out with this, but I would also really love to see a revamped tutorial that teaches new players how to play each of the different game modes, maybe gives them 3 brawlers instead of just Shelly to start out with, and then maybe even gives them a randomly selected super rare brawler, similar to how in Clash Royale, you start out with 1 free epic. That basically is your OP card for like a really long time. I think that doing this, as well as maybe adding a little bit simpler controls into the game like tap to shoot, even if it had like an auto aim button in the lower right hand corner for those new players, then I think that player retention would really increase. The fourth thing that needs to happen before Brawl Stars is ready to go global is we need spectating and replays to be added into the game. This feature is definitely needed in the game. It's going to greatly improve the amount of strategy discussion that happens in bans. It's going to make it possible for competitive esports to actually become a thing, and it would greatly add to the depth of the game overall. Now, Supercell did mention before this most recent landscape update that they were working on spectating and replays. Since we didn't get spectating and replays in the landscape update, which makes sense because they had to basically rework the entire UI, I can only assume that they're still working on it and that it will hopefully be here close to soonish. My guess is the next big update. The fifth thing that I think that Brawl Stars really needs before the game can go global is that there's currently little to no incentive to really continue playing, especially once you have max brawlers. Now at that point, you're probably like me and you really love Brawl Stars gameplay, but if you don't and you're not really highly competitive and just want to push in the ladder, once you have all of the brawlers and they're all basically all max, there's literally no reason for you to keep playing. There's no incentive for you to jump in there. I don't think this needs immediate fixing before the game goes global, but I think that Supercell needs to be ready to implement something like this soon after the game goes global. Mostly because it's going to take time for those new players to actually get to that point. But what I would love to see them is some type of a league system where you actually get rewards for continuing to play Brawl Stars even after your brawlers are maxed. I would love like special skins for different brawlers that you can only get by competing in these leagues and doing really well in the leagues and things like that. And then if you don't have max brawlers, then other ways to help like progress your account. Now Supercell has already mentioned that they know that adding more brawlers into the game and adding more skins into the game really does work as far as player engagement, and so they're planning on doing more of this once the game actually goes global. So that's good news. I don't think it's necessarily required before the game goes global, but I think it's something that needs to be on Supercell's mind, and they've got to be prepared for that soon after the game goes global. At least they have to have a plan. Now let's talk about how long I think this is going to take, okay? So from my 5 years of experience from Supercell Gaming, I've noticed that there are basically two types of updates. The first type is small updates. These are server-side updates that don't require a new build for the game to be released in the App Store, because basically everything they update is just on the server side of things. These updates typically are like balance updates and tweaks to the game, bug fixes and things like that, and Supercell basically does these as needed. I've seen them do small updates 2 days apart from each other, but typically we see a small update once every like 3 or 4 weeks. That being said, it kind of does depend on the state of the game. Now after small updates we have big updates. These require a new build to be released into the App Store, since it requires additional programming and has changes to the actual game code. These kinds of updates take time for the game to put together, but bring the biggest types of changes to the game. Typically, when they do a big update, we see 2 to 3 big changes to a game, and Supercell typically only does these once every 2 to 3 months. Now let's take a look at all of the things that I think needs to be considered or be done before the game is actually released globally. An auto-aim nerf, control optimization and options, some type of a new player tutorial revamp, spectating and replays, a league system. That's 5 big changes to the game. Now we take all of those things, and I think 1 or 2 big updates, and probably more like 2 big updates, honestly. Now you take the fact that Supercell released their last big update about a month ago, and the fact that it typically takes 2 to 3 months for Supercell to release every single big update. We put all of that into the pot, and all of that mixed together makes me think that we're looking at a global release in about 3 to 4 months or so. Now, if Supercell does what they did with Clash Royale, they'll likely release an Android beta about 1 month before the game actually goes global, which means that there's a possibility we could see an Android release in 2 to 3 months. Now, we talked about a lot of different stuff here, guys, and I just wanted to let you know that I am being 100% completely honest when I say that I'm completely in love with the game right now. Even despite the control issues and auto-aim, I'm still having a ton of fun playing matches every single day, and Brawl Stars is still a much higher quality game than most free games out there on mobile that I've ever played. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe for more quality Brawl Stars content in the future. For now, this is Kairos Time ticking by, and we will see you in the arena.